Hi, this is Henk, and welcome to another Skill Sessions edition. My guest is Michael T. Gilbert. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so what's up, man? What you have going on?
Well, been working on a new Mr. Monster story. Mr. Monster is my character, world's greatest monster fighter. And I've
Okay,
also been working on putting together a series of books collecting all the Mr. Monster stories from starting back in 1984.
okay. And so you're putting that out, and what's the release on?
It's supposed to be coming out through Fantagraphics, and it'll probably be out next year.
Okay. And how would people be able to see it? Would it be on like your website? Would it be on their website? Where can they get it?
Well, I'm on Facebook, so you can always find that information. And Fantagraphics, of course, has a page, so you should be able to find it when it gets out.
Okay. And let's go a little bit over your history. So, what, like the legal? I'm sure it's a lot, but what do you produce?
The quite wide variety of stuff. I started out in underground comics back in the 70s and moved to ground level comics like Quack it was a funny animal series that had my first series called The Wraith, which was a funny animal version of Will Eisner's Spirit, and I was doing that. And after that, I worked with Craig Russell, adapting the first Elric, Michael Moorcock's Elric series, a sword and sorcery series. And then I came up with Mr. Monster back in 1984 and did a number of different miniseries over the decades from various publishers. In between, I was also writing and laying out stories for Disney comics, Mickey Mouse, Donald Duck, Uncle Scrooge, and the rest. I did that for about 20 years in between while working on Mr. Monster and other things. I've also done a smattering of stuff for DC and Marvel.
Okay, what did you find the best project? Like, what did you like the most?
I like Mr. Monster because I tailored it to my strengths, and I own the character and I own the series. So anything that I control, is my favorite. But I
Right.
also did a one issue Superman graphic novella, Man and Superman, back in 2000 that I'm very proud of, and I did a Batman story solo called Legends of the Dark Knight '94 called Stories, showing Batman from perspective of different people of different ages, from an 8-year-old to an 80-year-old, and they have their various
That's a cool
memories
approach.
of that.
Yeah.
But I would draw them in the style. The 80-year-old woman who saw him in 1939, I drew it in the style of Bob Kane from 1939,
Oh, that's also cool. Yeah.
yeah, and we had Dick Sprang version from the 50s, and then the more modern Batman from the kid.
How do you find the whole like Marvel DC experience? I hear like a whole bunch of mixed stuff, like everything from like Steve Bissett and Walt Simonson. You are a little more positive on it to people like Alan Moore that are like super negative on it.
Right. Um, I enjoyed it, but of course, I'm not a regular worker for them. I've just done a handful of stories. It was difficult getting some of those things approved, but I'm very happy with how it turned out. They seem decent. But I've certainly seen lots of people, some people working for Marvel DC for decades, and suddenly they're older and they're not getting work from the companies, and they're getting bitter. Um, I never thought that I would be taken care of by Marvel or DC. I'm not a company man like that.
Right. Well, the big thing that I've mainly heard is like people like Frank Miller or like Alan Moore or whatever that like came up with stuff. They have no rights to it whatsoever. So they're kind of mad that like like Alan Moore especially is like he basically came up with the Watchmen and he's like he doesn't own it all. Like he's like take my name off the movie, all that stuff.
Well, that's his choice. Dave Gibbons was the co-creator of The Watchmen, and he did work with DC, and he has made a lot of money as a result of that. And he gets a cut of the movies and such. A lot of people would kill to get the deal that Alan was angry about. He would like to control it, but and there were certain things that DC did that were kind of underhanded, I think, but. He had the potential to, I'm sure he's doing extremely well regardless because he was very prolific and very talented and all that. But The Watchmen has been in print for the last, 40 years? Um, and the checks keep coming. If he doesn't want to cash them, that's his choice.
Yeah, I'm not taking a side. I'm just like
Yeah.
saying this is what's out there.
Yeah, well, the tricky part with DC and that is that the rights were supposed to revert to Alan and to Dave once the book went out of print. However, it was so popular that it never went out of print.
Yeah,
And
that's what I've heard. Yeah.
yeah, so again, I wish I had a problem like that. Yeah,
All right, so you're saying you're working on something right now, like you have a new Mr. Monster coming up?
yeah. Well, I've been working on new Mr. Monster stories, and the hopefully next year we're going to have a three-issue miniseries with some of the things. I'm working with different people. I have this uh, French cartoonist that I did a story with, very talented, very weird story. Um, and I did a story in 2022 that I started in 1985. I wrote it and I finally got down to drawing it. So it's got to be one of the longest gestation periods of thing between writing and finishing. So I was very happy to see that done. Um, which is
Do you
interesting.
enjoy the writing thing more or the illustrating thing more? Do you kind of consider them both the same?
I consider them both the same, but I've done both. I've done, some situations where I've illustrated other people's scripts and other things where I've been, for the Disney stuff, I was exclusively writing, although I would do rough layouts for the artists to see how the storytelling would approach. Um, I find the writing a little bit easier than the artwork. I guess I get too worried about all the little details of the artwork.
There's some people where like if they didn't draw the stuff they wrote, I don't know how they would like manage to manifest it. Like Frank Miller, for instance, like he almost had like has a vision in his head and then he puts it on paper. It'd be hard to transfer that thing.
Well, he's done some stories. He did the Electra thing, I think. I believe he wrote it, and Sienkiewicz drew it. Hold on
I
a
mean,
second.
yeah, no, it's true.
Okay,
He did an awesome job for that.
there. Yeah, and let's see. Didn't he um, do Martha Washington with Dave Gibbons? So
That's true. That's also true. So it's kind of undermining my whole premise. But
yeah.
yeah, like I guess if you're like as talented like Bill, like it's gonna look good. Like
Yeah.
you don't necessarily have to illustrate it. But like, maybe he had a hard time transferring his vision, but if you're also a visionary artist, you could definitely pull it off.
Right. So, but I get a lot of it's there are definite pros and cons. I mean, when I can do a story and I write it and draw it and color it and all that, I get a great deal of satisfaction. On the other hand, if I'm working with a really interesting artist or writer, and can collaborate them, that's exciting to me too to see what they can do. Sometimes I can do a story uh, that I would have trouble drawing well, but this other artist may well be a lot better than that, and I can do things that I couldn't do myself. So.
Well, I think the whole like electro assassin thing, like he needed Bill to like pull that off the way it was pulled off, because Bill has a kind of like surreal style, and
Hmm.
Frank doesn't have that.
Yeah. And of course, even when he was working with The Dark Knight, he was working with Klaus Janson, and he did a lot of the artwork in that, and he worked with Lynn Varley on the color, all of which, contributed to the final look, or it made it so popular. So,
Wasn't he married to Lynn Varley for a while?
yeah, I think he was.
Okay, so if you have one thing that like you want people to kind of like look at your career for, would it be Mr. Monster?
Yeah, that would be it. And within Mr. Monster, again, I've been doing this for, off and on for 40 years. And I use a lot of different styles, a lot of writing styles and art styles. Sometimes I'll be just silly little humorous Mr. Monster stories, and some I've done are deadly serious. And sometimes it's, one pager, and at least one time I did a 200-page graphic novel with Mr. Monster Origins. So yeah, I never get bored. There's always something for me to experiment with and try some things.
Okay, how do you find the whole like I don't know if it's like kind of the AI computer revolution. Like I remember when I got into the game, like people were like drawing everything. Now, like a lot of people like, yeah, I do the pencil, but then I go online and I do the inks in like Photoshop. And like I remember these have the four color print, for the color, and now it's like Photoshop color.
Hmm. Well, I'm not keen on AI. I just don't trust it. But as far as Photoshop, I like it a lot. Nowadays, I still draw my comics on Bristol board, but I scan it in and I do the coloring. In Photoshop, and I really like being able to do it because I can, I in the old days, back in the 80s and 90s, and that's when I was doing coloring. It would be with Dr. Martin's dyes, and if you made a mistake, you'd have to start over, or you'd have to do a paste up. And the
I
beauty
remember
is,
Mike Zeck would do that. And, like, it kind of inspired me. It's like, how did he color Craven? It's like, well, you'd actually print it on a watercolor board and like use the Doc Martens, like you said, and like illustrate it or color it that way, and then do a transparency where you print the lines on it and put that on top.
right. So that sort of thing. But now what I like about Photoshop is I can change the colors instantly if I want to. If I put something on a special layer, I can delete it if I don't like the way it looks. And there are certain uh, looks that I can get on that I can't get anywhere else. So I really do like that. And I've even done an occasion, I've even done some lettering on Photoshop, so that can be good. Although most of my Mr. Monster stories are lettered by Ken Bruzenak, who I've been working with for about 40 years, an excellent letterer, one of the best in the business. So that's always a treat when I get it back from him.
What do you think? Shifting gears a little bit, what do you think about like there are a bunch of people that are kind of like indie artists, like indie superstars, but indie, and then they kind of broke big, and then they got picked up by Marvel. I'm talking about like people like Tim Visual, like people who did stuff that was kind of like out of the box, but then they got kind of pulled into the mainstream a little bit.
Yeah, well, they had the Richard and Wendy Pinney on ElfQuest. Came out from Marvel for a while. They started with themselves, and they're still doing their own work now. I have no problem with people working, moving back and forth between Marvel, DC, and themselves. Whatever gets, as long as you have a decent arrangement, and they're not, keeping all the rights to this stuff, that's fine.
Was there any sort of drama between the people that were kind of like worked for the big companies and the people who kind of came in from the outside?
I don't know if there's a big drama, but there's different. I think a different attitude. I mean, there's people who are, been working for Marvel or DC for years and years, and they're comfortable doing that. But I guess, you can make a lot of money that way, but you're at the whim of the companies. They decide that they want everyone to look like John Byrne this month, or Frank Miller this month, or Todd McFarlane this month, or whoever this is. You see a whole company, all these people changing their art style so they can try to imitate it, you know. And I rather, the people in the indies would, have a singular vision that they want to do, not what the company wants to do.
I noticed that recently there's been like this big explosion of indie comics. You know,
Hmm.
like a lot of people do, like you run Kickstarter campaigns. I know also like I did it with DC Comics back in like '98, and the page rate then was
Hmm.
actually higher than it is for like a lot of the indie artists now because like they live in Venezuela and the cost of living is like cheaper there. Um,
Hmm.
what would be your input on that?
Well, back in the 90s and earlier than that, they were selling a heck of a lot more comics each title. I mean, there were some things that DC and Marvel put out, for years that I've said, I don't know how they can even afford to publish these comics at these rates, except of course they're charging, $5 or $6 as opposed to, a dollar or two that they did back then.
I remember there was 75 cents on the spinner rack at 7-Eleven.
When I started out, it was 10 cents. So back in the 50s. Uh,
Yeah, I used to go to 7-Eleven and I'd pick up it. And even then, I was like, well, 75 cents is a lot, which I mean, I guess it was in like 81. But still, it's like now it seems like they've kind of gotten more expensive, but people kind of don't mind that if they feel like it's like something unique.
yeah, they don't. Yeah, of course, a lot of what people do nowadays are not buying comic books, but they're buying graphic novel collections.
Right.
Which makes more sense. I think there's fewer people buying comics. And in the past, people would do a series of comics that they collected. When I was doing my Elric series, I did three of them. One with Craig Russell and one with George Freeman and Roy Thomas writing. And we did it with the intent we'd do 6 issues and it'd be a graphic novel at the end. And we were some of the earlier ones to do that kind of thing. Now, of course, everybody and their brother is doing it. Mm.
Yeah, I remember like when something like Watchmen or The Dark Knight Returns comes out to be like individual issues, and then just collect a new graphic novel. But the graphic novel was kind of like the it was like the comic nerd stuff. It's like stuff that people like me would go, yeah, when is that coming out? I'd love to buy that, but it's like a special thing. It wasn't the usual.
Right. Well, yeah, I mean, and there's so many different variations of the reprints even. You have Watchmen and you have the deluxe Watchmen and you get the giant size Watchmen and all these different things here. It's like with the music you used to get the records and you got the CDs and then
I just have the old Watchmen in the leather-bound book. I think it was Glitter Graphics did it. It was like
uh
in the slipcase and everything. Yeah, that was my pride and joy.
yeah, I've got the graffiti version, the same thing. It's just gorgeous how they did it. So I love seeing that kind of stuff. It's the kind of stuff that when I was starting out, you could only dream about. There was, literally just a handful of book collections and such, and now it's a flood. And with print on demand, they can do it with very little orders, and they can still produce a book that they can sell.
I heard that a lot of this stuff, like comics was kind of like going through the double drums, is like kind of like dying out, and then the movies really saved them when the whole like MCU and all that stuff came out, like
Mhm.
Batman. Um, did you experience that? Was that what you thought?
It didn't affect me at all, but again, I'm not working for Marvel and DC, and there hasn't been a Mr. Monster movie, so that doesn't hasn't
Yeah,
affected.
yeah.
Right, right, right. I've had some interest, but I'm not that interested myself. It seems more trouble than it's worth.
Well, I noticed that one thing that really seems to get because everyone complains, like for instance, the Watchmen movie. So
Yeah,
it was a 12 issue series, all condensed into one movie. So I wasn't happy that they changed the ending, but aside from that, it's like it's hard to compile everything in that. It's a very complex series into 2 hours. So I kind of like it better when it's like a streaming service.
yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, Watchmen in particular. certainly deserve to be a maxi series, and
Yeah.
things like this. I think they're doing some impressive stuff with the boys TV
Oh, I
series.
love the boys. It's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, but they had the room to do all that stuff. I wasn't that crazy about the Watchmen movie. I thought they had some things here, but it was too squeezed in, and you didn't get nearly what you got it in the comic book.
No, I remember the interview Zack Snyder about it. He was like, well, I know Alan Moore doesn't want it made, but I'm hoping to watch it and be like, that wasn't too bad. And Alan Moore's like, I will never watch his movie.
Uh-huh.
My girl calls him the crazy old wizard because he's like talented, but he looks like a wizard, like with all the rings and like the crazy hair.
Oh, he does look like a magician. Yeah.
Actually, I think he says he's a magician.
Hmm.
I
Yeah,
haven't.
we actually worked on a Mr. Monster tour together back in the 80s. And I got this wonderful dense 16-page script from him that, the script itself was like 30 pages. Um, and it was just wonderful working on it. Very nice
Okay.
guy.
Yeah, I heard that like he draws kind of a thumbnail sketch of how the whole thing in his vision would be produced, and then he sends that to the artist.
That's not what I got. It was extremely detailed descriptions of everything that came on here. He would really set a scene with the stuff. It'd be, three-quarters of the thing would be description of what's on the panel and what the smell of the atmosphere might be, all this other stuff to get the artist into the feel of what he wants to do. There are lots of other people who do thumbnail sketches and layouts. I do that when I do my scripting, but at least in the one that I worked with, he wasn't doing it that way.
Okay. And let me ask you another question. It's kind of like I guess it's more of a current thing. Like people sell comics as like PDFs, so you don't even buy an actual printed copy. You get
Hmm.
something that will pop up on your screen. What's been your experience with that, and what do you think of that?
Um, I love digital comics. I should say that I don't buy that many modern comics. I'm a collector of gold and silver age comics, and um, there are sites, free sites that you can download, stuff from the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and I have an incredible collection of those. I write and draw a comic history series for Alter Ego magazine. We're about to come up with our 200th issue. I've been in 200 issues doing that. And this has been an invaluable tool when I
Is that
want to.
magazine available digitally? Is it like only on print? How's it available?
It's print and digital at the Tomorrow's website, one word.
Okay.
Um, it's a fantastic book. We started working on that in 1998. And I have a little Mr. Monsters comic crypt section in there where anything that catches my attention from decades past, I do an article on it and do this. But I have entire um, companies from the 40s and 50s, and most of what DC and most of Marvel back in the 40s, 50s, and 60s on an external drive. I can fit them all in there. In the past, if I had this kind of stuff, I'd have to have a second house to store it, and I can have instant access to it. Um, that said, as far as personally with my work, I would like to, I'm fine with having it digitally, but I would like to have something in my hand. That's when it becomes real to me, a collection, book collection, or comics, or whatever.
Yeah, I feel like there's not like I remember I had an original Barry Woods Smith Machine Man page. There's
Hmm.
nothing like having the original art.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's wonderful. I mean, but for those who can't get their hands on that, they've done some wonderful art book collections where they have these giant things shot from the original artwork, and you get to see, it looks almost like the original artwork. Um, but those are high-end items too. But they're at least available for Wally Wood and some of the EC artists and some of who, some of the best one, Barry Smith and whatnot, Frank
Yeah,
Miller.
I remember. So I remember I bought the page. I mean, this is back in like I don't know, 89, 1990,
Hmm.
and I remember it cost me like $150. To me at the time, I was like, that's a lot of money. Now, and then I sold it when I was poor. Now it's worth like 5 grand.
Uh-huh.
I'm like, holy shit! Now I can't buy it back.
Oh, I know. It's crazy. Well, I mean, there was the thing that kills you is there was Russ Cochran was an art dealer and a publisher, this and that here, and he had an art catalog. And back in the 70s, we got some, and you can get original Prince Valiant pages for $150, or you know pretty Wally Wood pages or this stuff that you couldn't touch. You're going to get it for 100 or
I
150
wonder what the
dollars.
Wally Wood page goes for today.
Oh, I mean, some.
Probably a lot.
Yeah, I mean, it could be, $50,000,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I don't want to keep you here all day, but let me ask you a couple more questions.
Sure.
One, what was there that inspired you? Like I could always name who inspired me. I really liked like the work of John Taliban and like Bernie Wrightson. That really inspired me. What inspired you?
Well, among other things, I guess the earliest stuff that inspired me, I mean, aside from when I was a kid and saw some Superman comics for the first time, and Batman comics, back in the late 50s. But the stuff I can really look at is some of the Marvel Monster comics from Tales to Astonish, um, Strange Tales, with a lead story by Jack Kirby, always dynamic and exciting, and especially the backup stories by Steve Ditko. He's always been two of my biggest influences, but Steve Ditko in particular really inspires me because he has such clarity and his work
Yeah, I feel
evokes.
like Ditko's a little bit underrated. Like people don't know him as well.
Well, I mean, I know him nowadays, but he's the guy that co-created Spider-Man and Doctor Strange. So
Yeah, of
that
course. Yeah.
alone is not exactly chicken feed.
Right.
Uh, and later on, a little bit later on, Will Eisner's Spirit was a huge influence on me. So just the fact that he was such a superb writer and artist. He did The Spirit was a detective series that was in the newspapers back in the 40s, in a comic book section in the newspapers.
It's
And
crazy that you have to even explain it. It's almost
I
like
know, well, you never know who your viewers are, so
of course, yeah.
yeah.
So, all right. So, last question.
Mhm.
I already asked this, but if people want to find your stuff, what's the best way? Like, maybe start with Kickstarter and like throw some money that way and check out your stuff, or what?
I haven't done this Kickstarter yet, so I may eventually in the future. But like I say, I'm on Facebook. If anyone wants Michael T. Gilbert, cartoonist, you can find that. Um, just it's around there.
Okay. All right. Well, cool. Thanks, man. Thanks for giving me your time. And do you have anything else you want to say? Throw out to the sphere.
Just say hi to everybody. Keep reading comics.
Definitely keep reading comics. All right. So again, thanks, man.
Please like and subscribe before he kills again.